In the beginning of the story, an academy named Solmanati is shown as a place where young adults from all over the continents meet. Everyone has their own dreams and goals to reach, so they come to Solmanati Academy to unlock their true potential there together. It's a place that runs on a merit-based system, meaning those who fail to reach a required level are coldly removed without mercy. The protagonist of the story, Nosomo Bounties, has already completed 2 years at the academy. He joined the academy 2 years ago with his 2 childhood friends, leaving everything behind without just to enter the academy together. Then one of those friends was Nosomo's best friend, named Ken Notice, while the other person's name was Lisa Hounds. Before entering the academy, they were both deeply inseparable lovers. Nosomo shares that one day, she and her family moved into their village, which was located on the outskirts of a small country with friendly ties to a neighboring kingdom nearby. It was a simple farming village with fairly fertile land, so they faced no real food shortage. Still, each day passed without any excitement. But one day, while Nosomo was fishing, Lisa came over and shyly asked about his health, and if he was free at the moment, or not, then. Seeing her so close and blushing, he felt confused. Then he softly asks if she is talking about him being free or not. She replies with a yes, and says that if it was not trouble for him, then could she stay and talk with him. Soon she remembers that she never introduced herself, so she begins talking about herself. She explains she was a girl who had traveled with her mother for a long time. Her father had suddenly passed away, so her mother decided it was best to return to that small village to raise Lisa. Her father was an adventurer, and adventurers are people who travel far and wide across the world. They were the first ones to find new lands, and this was often faced with great danger, so at that time, Nosomo had no true wish to risk his own life for adventure. However, being a boy, he was naturally attracted to the stories of past heroes. So the story Lisa shared about her father completely fascinated Nosomo. Even though it was their first meeting, they lost track of time sharing stories of heroes, not realizing how late it had become. Their bond had only begun as childhood friends then. But as they grew older into their teenage years, they became more than just friends. One day, she went to Nosomo and said that she was going to Solmanati Academy, as she wanted to become an adventurer like her father. Hearing this, Nosomo, without thinking, asked her to let him go with her too. She was stunned and asked if he was serious, and what about his family then? At that moment, Nosomo realized she had a point, as he came from a simple family of farmers, and being their only child, he was irreplaceable in his parents' eyes. So, most likely, his father would fight him tooth and nail over it. Still, he declared that if the girl he loved wanted to chase her dreams, he would support her and go with her. Lisa was completely shocked, but blushed deeply, feeling too happy hearing all that. She smiled, thanked him, and leapt forward to hug him. Just as they were about to kiss, the scene shifted to the present, showing that it had been Nosomo's dream. In fact, he had been daydreaming all of it, and it wasn't the first time. Actually, the country was in chaos due to a demonic invasion. Even after 20 years, people still remember it as humanity's last stand. To prevent it from happening again, they opened Solmanati Academy. The school was built through the joint effort of every government on the continent. Each government openly funded it as a way to prevent any future disaster from happening again. The government accepted everyone willing to participate, regardless of their social standing. They judged everything by grades, so if someone worked hard or had natural talent, they could stay as long as they met the minimum requirements. If anyone graduated from the academy, they were offered a comfortable, prosperous life. However, if someone began to fall behind in class, like Nosomo certainly did, they started to be treated like an outcast. Nosomo was once at the top of his class, but now his peers looked down on him. It was true that everything, from social standing to the right to stay in the academy, depended on the grades shown by the magical name tags. In this system, the black name tag was the lowest rank of all, at 10th place. It showed that when Nosomo entered the class, everyone began talking about him as weak, a dropout, and a lowly person too. Even the classmates told him to just give up since because of him, they all looked bad. Then a guy named Mars Dickens came there and shouted, asking why Nosomo came to class again, saying Nosomo was useless, and that the class lessons were far beyond his abilities. Actually, Mars is a student who was held back because of his fiery temper. He picks fights with anyone he can provoke, and everyone becomes a target, no matter their rank. Since Nosomo was the lowest rank, he was naturally Mars' prime target. But when Nosomo didn't respond at all, Mars grew even more furious. Mars' sidekicks began bad-mouthing Nosomo, saying even his childhood friend, the red-haired princess, had abandoned him. Nosomo felt very angry but stayed silently seated. Mars kicked Nosomo's bench, causing him to fall to the ground. Mars aggressively asked why Nosomo was ignoring him, Just as Mars was about to hit him again, the teacher, Rivalry, appeared and asked what they were doing. The sidekicks tensed up and said they were giving Nosomo some lessons to help him improve. Henri told all of them to return to their seats and not waste his time, but Mars called Henri a weed and told him not to yell so he could hear. Henri asked fiercely that if he was a weed, then what kind of filth would they all be considered to be, being taught by him? Mars replied that it seemed being a black-tag teacher for so long had made Henri lose a few screws. Henri told Mars to come to his office after class ended. He then began teaching about magic, explaining that magic is the process of refining one's own mental power. Magic can be controlled through the mind, allowing elements to appear as spells used for one's advantage. And when using magic that affects the world around you, it usually requires a large number of magical elements, which is called ritual magic. Ritual magic is one of the two modern methods, the other being chanting magic. Chanting magic is used as a method to create spells. Finally, he explained that the next day they would experiment with different catalysts to produce specific magical effects. He told everyone to be prepared, but told Nosomo was excused from participating. Still, Nosomo insisted he would join. Henri agreed but told him to stay on the sidelines. At all that confrontation, the students began laughing. Henri got angry and told them to shut up, saying the only difference between them and Nosomo was minimal at best, as they were all useless black-tagged students. Next, it shows Nosomo thinking about Lisa, who had earned the nickname Red-Haired Princess for her excellent scores at the academy. She quietly rose to the top, with no one able to stand in her way. At that time, as her lover, he was in the spotlight, expected to match her excellence. However, he could not live up to the expectations everyone had placed on him. Actually, Nosomo believed he was never a scholarly person to begin with. He had also never held a sword in his life before entering the academy. He simply did not have the same drive as Lisa. Nosomo hadn't realized how intense the requirements of the academy were, so it was no surprise that he fell behind so quickly. Still, he never gave up and kept pushing, even while struggling. He refused to quit. He had friends and a lover who were willing to help, but most of all, he wanted to keep his promise to Lisa, as he still wished to be her support. Nosomo wanted to grow stronger, but now it no longer mattered, because something had happened to him. He could not improve his abilities any further, as if some massive handicap had been placed upon him. His continued growth had come to a halt, and the people around him grew more and more hostile, to the point of bullying him every day. Still, after all this, Lisa stood by his side. She increased their training sessions, hoping he would begin to improve again. With Lisa by his side, he pushed harder than ever before. In the summer, during their first year at the academy, they were closer than ever before. But suddenly, it ended abruptly when she said they needed to stop because it was useless. Nosomo was stunned because she had never shown him any frustration before and had always supported him. After that, without any warning, a rumor spread that Nosomo had cheated on Lisa with another girl. Nosomo denied all those allegations, but no one believed him. She was given her nickname for her beauty and talent, while he was seen as underachieved and with no future. Because of the rumor, everyone began treating him like garbage. He no longer had any friends, and many others joined Mars in constantly bullying him. When he tried to talk to Lisa, she gave him a cold, hatred-filled stare. Still, he attended class and trained until he could no longer move, determined to keep his vow. But one day, he was surprised to see his best friend Ken with Lisa as they roamed together like a couple. At first, he and Ken had been in the same rank, but later, Ken had the fastest growth in the academy's history. Ken often joined him and Lisa in their training session. Nosomo heard from other students that Ken comforted Lisa when she was heartbroken, so they soon started dating. Seeing Lisa smile so brightly, he could tell that she and Ken were dominating all other pairs in the mock battles. Now it was clear to him that he no longer belonged anywhere in her heart. Next day, Henri tells everyone to get ready for a mock duel battle, but they are not allowed to pick their own duel partner. They can use any magical power like chi, and magical strength boosts are also allowed during the test. Here, Chi is an Eastern style of magic that focuses on improving the body's physical movement and strength, while magic needs divine power to create an effect. Both forms are used across the Arkmil continent, especially in the city of Arkazam, built around the Solmanati Academy. All ancient magic found from old ruins has been sent to Arkazam so it can be properly studied and carefully researched there. It shows that Mars came to Nosomo and said that they were paired in a duel, so they should finish it quickly together today. Nosomo also gets ready for the duel and pulls out his sword, but while everyone wears an extra layer of armor for safety, Nosomo does not wear any armor. His chosen weapon is a unique sword that comes from an island country called katana-style blade. Katana is a blade that is made for cutting and stabbing an opponent. However, it is uncommon for students to use this type of sword because it is not widely found across the continent and is rare. Also, when used by a master swordsman, it can easily slice through steel bars. So the katana suits Nosomo best because it is hard for him to depend on any form of magical power during close combat. So the quality of the blade gives him an advantage because with this weapon, he gets a chance to grow his own skills. If he cannot use magic, he will simply rely on pure skill alone. By then Mars asks Nosomo if they are going to fight or not, because for him it does not matter, as he believes Nosomo is just useless trash anyway, and fighting him will only waste his time for today now. Henri then shouts and tells both of them to start fighting. At that moment Mars rushes toward Nosomo to attack, but Nosomo blocks it and cuts back slowly with control. But Mars laughs at it, saying it was very slow. The fight continues, and somehow Nosomo was matching Mars move for move at first, dodging all the attacks, but Mars soon gets bored and asks if this was all that he had left. So he says, "Let us finish it quickly now." Nosomo does not want to use chi much, as it is a power that uses life force and boosts the user's physical strength in return. Now when Mars attacks him fiercely, Nosomo somehow manages to dodge it. Mars gets even angrier and starts slashing at Nosomo again and again. Nosomo blocks those attacks using all his strength. Mars shouts and tells Nosomo to get out of his sight already and stop wasting his time. Mars now attacks without caring if Nosomo would die, throwing harsh slashes, but Nosomo is still standing firm, facing those attacks while blocking them and taking every hit head-on bravely. Finally, Mars strikes a deadly blow, and Nosomo is sent flying, crashing onto the ground. Mars shouts that Nosomo is such an annoying pest and that the fight was a total waste. The next moment, Nosomo loses consciousness. The scene then shifts to some time later, where Nosomo comes back to his senses and shouts that it hurts a lot. A girl is standing beside him, smiling happily to see him awake. Actually, she is the school doctor, Norn Altina. Norn tells him that she has already applied medicine to his back and chest, and asks if he feels any other pain besides that. Nosomo replies with a no, just feeling a little lightheaded. He is used to this, a life full of constant emotional and physical pain. He thanks Norn for her help, though not much, as he often comes to the infirmary and feels he owes her an unmeasurable debt. While Norn tells Nosomo to relax, suddenly Miss Anri arrives and asks if he is okay. Anri is a 10th class homeroom teacher at the academy, and she and Norn are best friends outside of school. Norn tells Anri to use honorifics since they are in the academy. Anri smiles and replies that it's fine because no one else is in the infirmary. Norn then points out that Nosomo is in the room. Before Norn can say anything, Anri rushes over to Nosomo and asks how he is. He replies that he is fine, but feels tense because Anri is too close, so he nervously asks her to step back a little, please. Norn tells Anri that Nosomo will be fine, as he has some bruises on his chest and back, along with a mild concussion, but the pain should fade soon. Just then, the bell rings, and students begin leaving for home. Seeing this, Nosomo grabs his sword and rushes out of the infirmary, thanking Norn and Anri as he says he has to leave now. Anri nervously asks him to wait, saying she hasn't checked him completely yet, and also wants to ask if he is going back to the forest. He is confused by the question, but still answers yes. Anri becomes worried for him and says it's dangerous to go alone, as even the knights struggle there. She suggests that he should go with other students, either as a partner or in a group. But Nosomo replies that he is fine and says that if she will excuse him, he is leaving now. She still tries to stop him, shouting that she isn't finished talking and he shouldn't ignore his teacher. After he leaves, Norn thinks that because of an incident, Nosomo fell to the bottom of his class and has been ridiculed by everyone. All of this began because of an ability he manifested in his first year, but abilities are special skills that any creature can develop. To this day, the Academy hasn't discovered why some people are given abilities. There are countless types of abilities, each offering significant advantages, but in Nosomo's case, his ability is suppression, a rare skill to manifest. It doesn't help him at all and actually holds him back. However, he can still use enhancements through items like magic and chi. Still, the effects of these enhancements are weaker than their full potential. Moreover, his ability constantly holds him back. While it differs for each person, anyone affected by suppression practically receives a permanent debuff. For Nosomo, the ability that is being suppressed is his physical strength. Norn thinks that Nosomo leaves as soon as his wounds heal. He will go to who knows where and return hurt again. Every time Nosomo returns, she tries to ask about the place. He only says it's a forest, but the real problem is that he always goes there alone. Thanks to Anri, Nosomo starts talking with Norn, but his behavior still doesn't change. Anri tells Norn that she is sure Norn can break through his mental shield, she just needs to keep an eye on him. Anri also says that everyone claims teachers and students can't be more than that, but she doesn't believe it. Still, she can't really help Nosomo with magic, so the best she can do is assist him with his technique. She says she is not a great swordsman either, but there was a moment when Nosomo almost gained the advantage using his technique, magic, and chi all at once. If she's honest, that battle was terrifying to watch. She believes that even though they are just 10th rank students, many of them are very skilled. By the time they reach their 3rd year, it's common for their grades to be around the C level. That's generally the rank of most high-level adventurers, or at least someone close to that. While Nosomo looks untrained, his abilities actually seem beyond a regular student's, though they still need refinement. Norn says that she is aware his body is well-trained. Anri adds that it is well-proportioned and has no extra fat, and that even a simple examination can show he follows a rigorous and intense training routine. On top of that, countless scars cover his body, which makes her sad to see him like that. Norn also says that for the same reason, she often thinks about quitting her job. Anri asks in confusion why Norn would say something like that. Norn explains that it hurts her to see someone so young go through this, and what she means is that these kinds of circumstances are far from normal. Anri also agrees, but it still seems that Nosomo is determined to achieve something. She asks Norn if he is wrong for that. Norn replies, no, but she thinks he has reached his growth limit. But even with all the training he receives at the school, she wonders if there is something more out there, something only he can achieve on his own. Next, the story talks about the Forest of Spatium, which surrounds the city that houses the Solmanati Academy. It is a dense forest that stretches around Arkazam. A wide variety of plants grow in this forest. Both students and ordinary citizens make a living by hunting monsters and gathering resources from within it. But while a rich forest can be a blessing to people, the densest forests are also home to powerful beasts. Every year, at least a few people die or go missing there, never to be seen again. The great city of Arkazam was built nearly 10 years ago. At the heart of the town stands the Solmanati Academy, along with the nearby district. In the northern part stand the political and administrative offices that manage the city as a whole, meaning that only aristocrats and other high-ranking personnel are allowed inside this very specific district. The eastern area contains the civilian district. Located there are dormitories meant for the students. It also serves as the main living area for the people of the city. The southern area is seen as the commercial district. The city of Arkazam is a bit unique, as its market is also known for offering a variety of goods from across the world that people would not usually find elsewhere. It's the literal lifeblood of the local economy for the city. While the main attraction for passers-by is the many stores, the Southern District also houses the city's adventurer guilds. Based on their ranks, students are allowed to take jobs given by the guild there. The western area of the city holds many artisan workshops, from blacksmiths to skilled weavers and crafters. This is where artisans from all over the world gather to improve their skills and practice their craft every single day. There is a highway that runs through all the districts of the city, while the rest of the surrounding area is a dense forest, and this forest is known as the Forest of Spacim. From outside, it looks like a wide sea of trees, so it is called the Blank Forest, and people who enter often get lost. In the next scene, it shows Nosomo fighting a girl inside the forest. He uses both hands to wield his sword, showing his will and firm resolve. While fighting, he keeps getting pushed back, and the girl tells him that it is not good enough. Still, he stands up and fights back. He uses Chi Instant Dash to dodge the attack. It is a type of magic that allows strong speed and movement that can be as fast as a blink of the eye. Even while running, she tracks him down, saying that he is still too slow. She uses a Chi Phantom Blade attack, which is a phantom slash made from compressed and dense Chi. It is a simple technique, yet a flexible attack that moves at an extremely high speed. The blade travels dozens of meters the instant the sword is drawn out, but somehow Nosomo blocks the strike and asks, calling the girl master, if she was trying to kill him there. She replies that if she truly wanted him dead, she would have done it when he tried to run away and left himself fully open, and dodging an attack like that could have easily ended his life right there. So of course, if this was a real fight to the death, she would strike him a second time without pause. When he realized, he grew tense, but then she jumped again and attacked at him. He tries to escape and strike back, but she sees the attack and dodges it easily. He is stunned, and she announces that just like that, he is finished. He finally loses the duel and says that he gives up. The lady standing before him is named Shino, and she is his secret master. Before the town was built, she traveled into these woods to constantly train and improve her skills. Nosomo says that he is not done yet, so they should duel again. She replies that he is acting too hastily, knowing he wants to continue. However, she suggests that he should try to learn something from his defeat. It is important to find the gap in the opponent's defenses. If he uses this idea correctly against his enemy, he can finish the fight in just seconds there. Nosomo says that only someone like her could react so fast at such close range. Shino replies that he is mistaken, as anyone could do this, since his last attack was nothing more than a half-hearted attempt, so it is only natural that she could see his weakness. In fact, she could sense the movements of his body. She then says that it is getting late, so he should go into the forest and gather something for them to eat. He grows a bit tense looking into the forest and says, "Anything for master?" She then asks if that means he will get her whatever she wants. He becomes scared and tells her not to be absurd, thinking he must go quickly, or she might kill him. After he goes to search for food, she thinks that, even a little bit, he is showing improvement. Actually, her first meeting with Nosomo happened when she was staying in a rather dangerous part of the forest. The beasts there were very powerful, so it was rare for ordinary people to enter that area. As she looked around, the sound of a blade swinging caught her attention. That's when she saw him, all alone, training. Naturally curious, she watched him from the shadows for some time. However, she began to notice the awful state he was in. His face looked pale and lifeless, and the skin on his hands was torn and peeling. The swelling in his joints made him lose his footing every time he swung his sword. Obviously, the boy was exhausted from pushing himself too hard. Being malnourished only made his condition worse, so she approaches him and shouts that there is no point in training in such a state. He replies that he does not care. He just wants to get stronger, since his first love abandoned him, and everyone treats him like worthless trash. He at least wants others to stop treating him so harshly, so until he can earn some respect, he cannot go home and must keep training. But he knows he has no future, as his abilities will not grow, and in truth, they cannot grow. Shino realizes that he is harming himself just to earn respect from others. It must be brutal to make him act so desperately. Seeing those lifeless, clouded eyes reminds her of a starving beggar on death's door she once met after leaving her hometown. Still, she steps back, thinking she just has to try not to dwell on it, but seeing that same look on someone so young is breaking her inside. Then she hears strange sounds, and when she turns around, she sees that demon dogs are attacking him. Actually, demon dogs are man-eating, monstrous versions of normal dogs. As demons, they are low-ranked, but even so, they can still kill a person with a single bite. She thinks that she has to be honest with the kid, because this alone could finish him. Those demon dogs look just as dangerous as dragons to him right now, given his weak condition. She feels torn about helping such a weak child, seeing how he carries a clear death wish inside. But she told him that if he wants to be dead, he should still die as a warrior. He asks what that means, warrior. She responds yes, saying he can only die after he has learned how to swing his sword the right way. So it's been 1.5 years since that day, and she has been trying to train him. According to her, he has become quite a monster. In theory, the Phantom Blade skill creates a sharp slash of condensed chi that flies toward the opponent. The skill itself is considered basic, but a true master can turn even the simplest skills into the deadliest weapons. A master like her can defeat any opponent using this skill alone. In fact, her blade is so strong that it can cut through a pot of iron as easily as paper. However, Nosomo's blade is not as strong in force as hers, but it is just as sharp and dense. If she thinks about it, this is impressive, considering that his abilities are completely sealed. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses her, and with this much power, she is sure that the reason he cannot improve his skills in the academy is because of his suppressed abilities. The school, therefore, focuses on teaching students who already possess those abilities in mind. To make up for this disadvantage, she has him focus on his swordplay instead of chi control. Even though the skills she taught him require extreme focus, they are very powerful. Using them in a mock battle at the academy would still be very hard, but if Nosomo wants to show his true strength, he must first master the many ways to use these techniques without depending on chi. But first, they have to build up his physical strength, or he will be easily defeated by anyone he fights. She knows that questions like that are meant to see what a person has grown into, or what has already been broken before. It is clear that he escapes reality by training recklessly, and it is also obvious that he is trying to run away from who he really is. Not only that, it is the main cause of his social anxiety. In other words, he is deliberately isolating himself from others. While she does not say that escaping from society is entirely wrong, once a person runs from reality and enters a new one, it becomes impossible to return. For this reason, she thought it would be best to help him, so she decided to call their training sessions the escape. although he may not be fully ready to be her disciple, but with this, she can rest easy, knowing that she has passed on everything she has learned over the years. That way, when she eventually leaves him, she hopes he can break free from the chains that bind him. On the other side, while Nosomo was searching for food, he heard an explosion and wondered what it was, as it was unusual for anyone to be in the forest. Nosomo thought that magic is a general term for power that uses spirit-based forces, usually relying on spirit energy. It is the counterpart to chi and has existed for centuries. From the sound, he guesses that someone is fighting a beast-type demon, and it is different from the demon dogs he fought before, so he decides to go and see what kind of demon he will have to face. As he came closer, he saw two demonic bears together, and he knew they never travel in pairs, so he felt sure that both of them were brothers at that time. This special red fur is easy to spot, and people say that the fur itself is as strong as any shield in battle for sure. The bears themselves are a rank B threat. It takes very strong ranked adventurers to defeat one alone. Normal soldiers never stand a chance against such creatures. For someone like him, it would take at least 5 people to face something like that alone. Suddenly, he saw a girl fighting and rushing to attack the bear. He remembered that he had seen her before. She is the same age as him, but holds a much higher rank than him now. She is one of the top students in their school this year, and people call her the Midnight Princess for her dark hair. Her name is Iris Dina Franchild, and she is well known. Nosomo then saw another girl and realized that it was Thelma Lime, a well-known strong mage in the academy. From her power alone, she already beats the teachers in magic skills. Thelma casts a wind vortex spell to attack, a move that creates strong wind that cuts through enemies. This kind of spell is seen as a mid-level spell in this world. She is also known as the Singer of the Four Winds. Iris Dina Franchild and the often tired but strong mage, both of them stand at the top of the academy. The technique Thelma used to bring down the bear was very strong, even without changes or chi boosts, so she clearly had great magic power then. Nosomo believed this was simply how strong her natural magic really was. He wondered how one person could ever become so powerful. Suddenly, a bear rushed in to attack Thelma from behind. Seeing this, Iris grew tense, but for some reason, Nosomo ran forward to save her. Still, Iris made a quick attack at the bear, which is a special skill of hers that lets her use attacks and spells without saying words. Nosomo also got his chance and cut down the bear fast. What they did not notice was that the bears were in a group of 3, yet they were all saved. Iris and Thelma surprised to see Nosomo. Nosomo was confused, wondering why his body moved on its own, as he only had a split second to act. It was not very different from the time he used his own phantom blade. Still, when he compared their strength, Master Shino was far ahead of him. Even so, chi powers are something that should never be taken lightly. Because of his hidden powers, everything he does feels very weak. Not only that, his body is still at its limit since he already had that practice fight earlier today with his master too. Thelma saw Iris walk toward the boy. Iris went to Nosomo and said sorry for not noticing him, and thanked him for helping. She then asked if he was hurt or feeling bad after. Nosomo replied with a no. She thanked him again, saying that because of him, she and her friend were safe. Iris then shared that they were both in the second year at Solmanati Academy and in the same class. Thelma came over and introduced herself, looking very shy. Iris stepped forward and apologized on Thelma's behalf, saying she might be nervous, but she was still her best friend. Thelma also apologized, saying she was shy around men and it had nothing to do with him. Nosomo blushed too and said it was okay, he didn't mind at all. Iris then asked about him, as by his looks he seemed like a student from Solmanati Academy. He was surprised since everyone in the academy knew him by name, and he thought maybe they were kind to him, but knew they could turn against him in an instant. At first, he thought of not giving his name, but then he felt it would be rude to hide it, since Iris's family was one of the important founding families that helped build Arkhazam. Her father serves directly under the royalty, more specifically, he is a longtime advisor to the kingdom of Forsina. So Nosomo introduced himself, and Iris was surprised to hear it. Iris said she could believe him, but it was very suspicious for a 10th rank student to be alone in the forest. She asked about the rest of his party, which left him completely confused. For some reason, Thelma understood and looked scared. He nervously said that he didn't have any party and had been completely alone in the forest. Both Iris and Thelma were shocked to hear this. Actually, Iris and Thelma were 2 of the most skilled A-rank students. Ranks are given to adventurers in the Arkmill continent as a way to judge a person's abilities. defeating demonic beasts and completing specially graded missions, creating new research, and making groundbreaking inventions. All of these can help raise a person's rank. Generally, if someone is A rank, they are like a top ranger, a knight in the king's guard, or a court magician. They might also be skilled in economics or work as a military strategist. The Academy has only approved 5 unique students as A rank in the second year. Even those at the highest ranks still respect the danger of facing demonic beasts. Nosomo also told them that no one wanted to work with someone like him. Iris said she didn't understand why no one would let him join their party, as students who could survive alone in the forest were extremely rare. She then asked that, despite all this, if he was alone in the forest, there must be a reason. Nosomo started shouting that he came to the forest to train and that he knew he could make himself stronger, and no matter how small the change, he would gladly accept it. But he still doubted he could become as strong as others, and he knew that better than anyone. Still, it didn't mean he should just give up and die. Iris replied that she understood and was sorry, but she still found it strange. Nosomo apologized for being rude and asked how he should address her. Iris said that just using her name was fine, as they were all students. He tried to say something, but she asked him to drop the formality. He agreed, and then asked them what they were doing there, as it was unusual for students to be in the forest. Iris said that they received a request from the guild, which reported seeing a dragon. He was surprised to hear this, as dragons are considered legendary beings and among the most powerful creatures in existence. Iris explained that it is a species with incredible power, and it is said that in ancient times, they once ruled over all creatures in the world. On top of that, it is also said that anyone who kills a dragon is granted its power. It is nearly impossible to see one alive. Most people alive today have never even seen a dragon's skeleton. There are also very few stories of anyone ever killing a dragon, except for those mentioned in history books as having killed a dragon. Iris also said that no one took the rumor seriously, but they couldn't ignore it entirely in case a dragon really was lurking nearby. Dragons are a type of demonic beast. If the creature rumored to be sighted is actually a dragon, it is said that this one is relatively small and not very intelligent. But even with its size, its attacks could still be a serious threat. Even this dragon would still be considered the highest level demonic beast, so a half-hearted hero would stand no chance. Nosomo said he understood and would keep that in mind. She said happily that it was good of him, since if the dragon appears, she wouldn't be allowed to fight it either. She then asked if he wanted the materials, its fur or meat, since they could earn some money. Moreover, he could take the whole bear, since she owed him a favor. He asked, "A favor?" "It's nothing like that," and said he would just take a little meat. After that, Iris said they were heading back to the city and asked about him. He said that he would stay a little longer. Later, when he left, Iris asked Thelma why she had been so timid. Thelma said that the boy was the one who had teased Lisa and played around with women. Iris confirmed it and said that he didn't seem like the kind of man to do such terrible things, as she just couldn't see it in him. Thelma agreed, but she was still scared either way. Iris said it was okay, and that if they got another chance to meet him, Thelma could apologize. Thelma agreed with that. On the other hand, Nosomo was smiling as he made his way back to Shino. Shino saw him and angrily said it looked like someone was late, asking if he had been dominated by the opposite sex. Nosomo nervously asked why Shino was so angry. That day, Shino got mad and doubled his training regimen. The scene then shifted to Iris at her home, where she was thinking about him. The speed of his sword was incredible, and its color was pure and clear. Mithril is a metal with a strong connection to magic, able to store magical energy over time. As a material for armor, it is far superior, not just in strength, but also in flexibility. Her sword was given to her by her father and swordmaster when she first came to Arcazon. They had the blade made with her magical use in mind. They believed it would protect her better than any armor, the perfect partner. It was engraved with the name, "The Silver Wings of the Evening Star." She walked over to her sword and picked it up. It was a magic sword, Moonlight Eclipse, capable of its most powerful magical attack. Chi and magic are called the sources of the soul. In reality, there isn't much difference between the two in concept. If someone looks at it objectively, the power of both depends entirely on the caster. Magic depends on the mental state of the caster and their focus and harmony. Chi relies on the physical core of the caster, and the two often clash. Her sword was made to cancel out this conflicting nature. Perhaps this sword could cut through even the toughest dragon scales. Iris smiled and said she would never be as strong as Nosomo. She then realized that he still hadn't even headed toward the city. Even she wouldn't risk staying in the forest overnight, as being in their territory at night seemed suicidal. Yet Nosomo was out there alone while the demonic beasts roamed at full strength. Only those with a death wish would stay in the forest alone. Normally, only people unaware of the dangers, or highly trained scouts and covert operatives with the skills to survive at night, would stay out there. Iris was now blushing, fully focused on Nosomo, wondering just what kind of person he really was. The scene then shifted to the next day around noon, where Nosomo stood in the park. He felt uneasy standing among so many students, as he was always hated throughout the whole academy there before. He truly did not want to eat in the park, but the school's cafeteria was far worse. Also, he struggled with money, which meant that he had to survive by using only what he hunted daily. Also, the training in the early morning was doubled by Master Shino, so he had little energy left to make a proper lunch when he went back to the dorm. Later, while he calmly ate his bread, he noticed an Eklos student standing there nearby alone. Eklos is an extra school that is closely linked to the Solmanati Academy. It mainly teaches younger students, usually children who are about 10. Its purpose was to find children who might show signs of being gifted at an early age. They used the school to grow their skills while still young in age. Usually, those who were chosen for this school came from powerful official families only there lives in the city. It's common for their children to be gifted in something. But Nosomo felt confused, as she looked a little too short for a child who belonged to Eklos. Seeing her in trouble, he chose to help her. He walked closer to her and asked if there was any problem. When the girl turned back, he felt shocked seeing her, as it seemed like looking at someone who looked just like her. The girl said that she was playing with Shadow during her lunch break. He asked in confusion, "Shadow?" The girl looked up, and Nosomo saw that there was a cat on a tree branch playing nearby there. He asks if that is a bracelet. She replies yes, saying the bracelet was hers. She does not know why, but Shadow grabbed it and climbed the way up there on the tree. Hearing the problem, he checked the tree condition and saw that it was tall and looked smooth. Still, he chose to climb it. While he was climbing, the cat grew angry and started roaring at him. Nosomo was calm because climbing was his strength, but when he asked the cat to give back the bracelet, the cat jumped at him to scratch his face. He pulled the cat away, but during that moment, he got scratched on his hand by the cat and the bread fell. They both fell down, but the cat was safe as she landed in the girl's lap. She asked if Nosomo was okay. He said yes, and then asked if the bracelet was safe. She said yes, and happily thanked him for the help. He said that it was not a big deal. She realized that she had not introduced herself, so she shared that she was Somiliana, and her friends called Somia. Nosomo introduced himself back, and asked if he could call her Somia. She said okay, and thanked him again for the help. He blushed at that, as it was his first time someone had thanked him like this after a very long time. Before they could speak more, the bell rang, and she felt slightly startled then there at the moment. He also told her to hurry if she did not want to be late. She agreed and bowed to thank him before leaving. He missed his lunch because of all this, but he still smiled and thought that it was okay. After that, the practical class began, and Henri explained that ritual magic was one of the oldest forms of magic, so if they all listened carefully and followed the directions, they would have no problems. However, if they were completely lacking in magical abilities, it might be difficult for all of them. Henri then showed them a magical altar and said that each of them would create their own altar. Once they built the altar, they needed to follow the verbal incantations to direct their magical power toward the center. When they finished releasing their magic into the circle, it should create a spell. Spells were usually as strong as the caster's natural magical ability, and the magic would reflect the spell they desired. The accuracy of the magic circle also depended on the caster's skill. It completely depended on the caster's magical ability. Nosomo could not imagine what it felt like to use magic. He also noticed that Mars was lucky enough to be skilled in both chi and magic at fairly high levels. Generally, a person's ability usually leans toward either chi or magic. Rarely does it balance evenly. In Mars' case, very few are exceptional in both, with chances of less than 1 in 100. However, being able to use both at the same time was an even rarer event. Everyone else was also praising Mars's abilities. On the other hand, due to Nosomo's suppressed abilities, he had not actively taken part in the magic lessons. And since he could not produce any magical power, he had sat out of all the magic classes since his first year at the academy. But because he missed classes regularly, he tried to make up for lost time by attending them instead. He only showed up to keep up appearances, so he would not receive any more marks on his record. The academy focused on students with strong talents, so they received more benefits. The higher the ability, the more preferential treatment they got. Those with the highest ranks were given opportunities far beyond others. Even adventurers provided high-ranking students with better supplies when they went on quests. Suddenly, Nosomo was stunned to see that the girl standing next to Iris was Lisa. There was usually a large gap between differently ranked classes and where they trained. Since Nosomo was a 10th ranked student, he hoped he would not see Lisa again. It had been over a year since he last saw her. They had once promised their futures to each other. When the fight began, Nosomo was stunned by Lisa's speed, but he was also surprised to see Iris easily and calmly counterattack with phantom bullets. Nosomo was also amazed to see Iris holding her ground against Lisa's overwhelming speed and using her own skill to dodge Lisa's deadly, precise attacks. As the fight continued, Lisa clearly seemed to have the upper hand. Seeing Lisa wield her sword so confidently, Nosomo tensely wondered if Iris even stood a chance to win. But suddenly, to his shock, Iris struck back at her with an unexpected move. He wondered if Iris could use skills without casting, and how it was possible for her to wield a sword and cast magic at the same time. He thought that Iris's sword must be enchanted, and that she was using chains to strike at Lisa's feet, all while blinding her with black fog. She swung her sword fiercely while using magic to distract her. Though Lisa managed to fend off the attack, it was clearly a battle between the two highest-ranking students. They continuously charged at each other, neither willing to take a step back. Lisa's attack created violent winds around the arena, leaving afterimages of herself as she struck. Suddenly, Lisa distanced herself from Iris, and flames erupted from her sword. Nosomo was stunned, as this was something even the most powerful sorcerers could not wield. It was almost as powerful as Thelma's wind vortex, but Iris also used her power to block the attack. Everyone was stunned, as a whole pathway had been broken between them. Nosomo wondered how it could be so incredibly powerful, and just how she could be that strong. Lisa asked Iris curiously how long she had been preparing for that attack. Iris replied that it was since the start of their fight, because Lisa's fierce attacks made her take a little longer than usual to get ready. She had to focus on the battle, or Lisa might have gained the upper hand. Lisa smiled and said she would take that as a compliment then. As Lisa was leaving, Iris wondered about her, since Lisa was Nosomo's former lover and, from what she had heard, was now dating her ex-lover's best friend, Ken Notice. Iris knew she didn't know either of them personally, and only fools judged people they didn't really know. She wondered if she had summoned the attack sooner. The battle with Lisa would have been smoother, since it usually took her 10 seconds to conjure it. But she thought that for Nosomo, it didn't even take a single second. She just wondered how he did it. Suddenly, she saw Nosomo and was about to wave, but to her surprise, he ignored her and walked away. Before she could think about it, Thelma arrived with the potions. After that, she watched her classmates duel, as it was always her habit to watch them, thinking she could learn something new from their fights. When Iris was looking elsewhere, Thelma noticed her and asked curiously if something was wrong. Iris replied, "No, it's nothing." Soon, she asked Thelma if she could ask something. Thelma said, "Yes, go ahead." Iris said it was about Nosomo's ability. Meanwhile, Nosomo was tensely wondering why Iris had left him for Ken, why he was forcing himself to go through this pain like it was some sick game. He wondered why he couldn't become stronger, and why he didn't just give in to the pain and move on already. Why he couldn't stop the thoughts that constantly ran through his mind. He couldn't even think of a reason why he was in the academy, and these chains kept him bound, never letting him move forward. Actually, he had come to the academy even after arguing with his father for weeks, until his father finally told him he was never allowed to return home. His decision led to this twisted reality, where the pain in his heart forced itself to retreat and lock away from within. He never imagined that such thoughts would run through his mind. Nosomo knew he wasn't like this before, but now, despite his best efforts and constant grueling training, he still hadn't improved. He had tried so hard and even asked Lisa where it had all gone wrong, but all he got in response was a look of disgust. Since then, all he had done was torture himself with a constant barrage of questions he would never receive answers to. Nosomo was deeply sad, with a painful look, thinking that he needed his master's help to train harder. He knew he had grown a dangerous habit over the last year. He forced himself to train harder as a way to cope with his weakness. It was the only defense he had left for his broken heart. Suddenly, he heard someone shout, "Wait," and when he looked, he saw it was Somia rushing after her cat to catch it. Somehow, she caught her cat and was about to fall to the ground in the process. But again, Nosomo stepped in and saved her from falling. She was surprised to see Nosomo and said that her cat had escaped during her afternoon practical training class. The cat must have noticed the window was slightly open and made its escape. After that, Nosomo said goodbye, saying it looked like she was fine, so he would take his leave. But Somia stopped him and asked if she could see him again the next day. He asked, confused, what she meant by see. She replied that it was the second time he had helped her, and she wanted to repay his kindness. She also said it would be nice if she could talk to him a little more. Nosomo was in shock, as it was the first time in a long while that someone had asked to see him without trying to bully him, but he thought that if she stayed around him, she might face the same treatment as he did. Besides, he really needed to go back and train with his master, Shino. But while he was thinking, she asked with a cute face if it was a no from him. Seeing her like that, he couldn't deny it, and said he could meet her only during lunch. Somia became very happy and said goodbye, telling him she would meet him tomorrow. Before he could say anything else, she ran back to her class. He was amazed at how much energy the girl had. The scene shifted to the night, where Somia was trying to use magic, but she couldn't do it well. She sadly wondered why she couldn't be as good as her own sister. She felt there had to be something wrong with her. Just then, her sister came from behind and asked Somia what she was talking about, saying she was doing wonderfully. It turned out that Somia's older sister was none other than Iris. Iris explained that they currently recognized 6 elements. These were earth, fire, wind, and water, which were the common ones. The other 2 were uncommon and known as light and darkness. How a person used each element depended on their connection with the element itself. However, most lower-level spells could be learned regardless of affinity. The more complex the spell was, the more important a person's natural affinity with the element became. Iris asked if Somia was having trouble with a certain spell. Somia said yes and showed her light magic. Iris said that light magic was a bit tricky to begin with. She then showed a demonstration and explained that the spell she used was called Torch. Iris asked Somia to focus on the pace of her magic chant, as light magic required a lot of energy to work. However, when a person released the magic and cast the spell correctly, the energy would slowly diminish. Once she found the proper size of the light she wanted, she had to maintain the flow of energy to keep it from disappearing. Actually, Iris's specialty was the darkness element, but she could also use all the other elements with ease. Somia was amazed by Iris and praised her a lot. After that, Iris continued teaching Somia and finally asked if something had happened, as Somia had been looking very happy lately. Somia replied yes, saying she had made a new friend recently. Iris asked what her friend was like. Somia said he seemed very sad, as if something was always bothering him, but he was very kind. Somia shared the cat incident and how he had helped her by climbing the tree. She also noticed that he seemed concerned about them talking to each other and was very sensitive, but she knew he was a kind person. Somia then asked Iris about herself. Iris said that she had also met a few interesting people recently, but one, in particular, stood out. Somia asked Iris what he was like, but at that moment, Iris wondered why Nosomo had that expression. Was it because of Lisa? And what exactly was he doing there, as he looked so broken? Iris then said that she wasn't entirely sure about his personality, and he didn't let their conversations go on for too long. Somia was stunned to hear this, as it was very unusual for Iris to be interested in someone she hadn't really spoken to before. Iris said that the man she was talking about had been caught off guard by a surprise attack during an investigation. He appeared out of nowhere, taking only half a second to slice his blade through the monsters. On top of that, his movements were so precise that he would put any other swordsman she knew to shame. She knew there was a difference between magic and chi in terms of abilities, but she could never make a movement like that. Somia was surprised to hear that someone better than her sister existed. Iris then told Somia to go get some sleep, as it was already late. Somia refused, saying she wanted to talk more about that person, but Iris didn't agree, saying she needed proper sleep to stay a good student as well. As Somia was leaving, Iris wondered about her, thinking she was still so small. Somia had been born prematurely, and their mother had passed away during the pregnancy. After their mother's death, Iris was left alone to raise Somia, who struggled to survive day by day. Iris was determined to protect her sister from any harm and take over the Franklet family as its head. Even at 6 years old, she already knew it was her calling. She studied swordsmanship intensely and pushed through all the obstacles in her way to meet her family's expectations. She only desired skill and power in swordsmanship and sorcery. Currently, she stood at the top of her class and believed that nothing could stop her from fulfilling her duties as the next family head. She never sought the kind of love other noble women looked for. Iris had worked so hard for this position, and it had cost her every bit of her being to reach where she was now. That's why she wanted to know where people had gotten this bad image of Nosomo. Nosomo was supposed to be this evil scumbag who betrayed the love of his life, even though everything pointed to him supporting her so desperately. She thought it all seemed like some drama out of a storybook. Anyone who claimed to have seen him without a woman by his side couldn't tell a straight story. Iris wondered how two people who seemed inseparable could suddenly drift apart like that, and the fact that Lisa constantly pushed him away, along with the cold shoulder treatment from everyone around him, all the circumstantial evidence suggested that they had some sort of fight. She knew that this kind of experience he was forced to go through had put him in a place where he kept trying to change. Anyone could see glimpses of the effort, written so intensely across his entire being. Iris really wanted to know what kind of training he had put himself through to be able to produce an attack like that. In the next scene, Somia was sitting beside Nosomo, talking with him. Somia was talking about last night, explaining how her sister had sent her to sleep, saying she was a child. Nosomo agreed, saying that at just 10 years old, she was definitely a child. Somia got annoyed and told him not to say that either. He laughed and said okay. She then asked him about life at the academy. Nosomo sadly showed her his black tag, revealing that he was the lowest rank. She started laughing, saying he was just like her, since she wasn't like her sister, who excelled at everything, yet she was still trying. Nosomo saw the immaturity in Somia's eyes, and at the same time, he accepted himself as someone the same. He then asks about the bracelet, as it seems very precious to her, and what it is. Somia explains that the bracelet has been passed down in her family for generations. It's like something that connects them to each other in a family. They keep it with them to feel their family's bond even when they are apart. It reminds them that one day they will all be together again. She also said that it was originally kept in one of the safest places, but her sister gave it to her as a birthday gift last year. It reminds them that no matter what happens, they will always stay connected. Nosomo understood and thought that having small family connections like this is nice. So he asks Somia when her birthday is. Somia shares that her birthday is coming soon, and her father isn't in town right now, so he won't be able to join, but her older sister is still planning a party, and she's very excited about it. He listened happily, staring at her, which made her feel a little strange. Suddenly, he asks her to go have lunch. She replies that today she will eat with her sister. When Iris arrives, both Nosomo and Iris are surprised to see each other. Iris said she was surprised, as she never thought he would be the new friend Somia mentioned. Nosomo looked shocked, while Somia asked curiously if Iris had known Nosomo before. Nosomo asked shockingly if Somia was her sister. Somia then said her last name was Franzchild. Nosomo then realized he should have known that Somia's bracelet was not something any commoner would easily own. He also noticed that their black hair looked almost the same, and she had mentioned that her sister was in the same year as her. He tensely wondered why he hadn't made the connection, as he had been meeting Somia for some time. He couldn't understand how he had missed it. Iris then gave lunch to Somia and asked Nosomo to join them. At that moment he wondered about Iris, as she had it all. A beautiful face and the grace of a goddess. She was extremely dependable and always helped those in need. She was practically admired by the other students, so he was sure she received countless dinner date requests, unlike a useless, good-for-nothing loser like him. He couldn't think of any reason why she would offer to have lunch with him. If they were in a more crowded area, the news would spread across the whole academy in a minute, so Nosomo apologized, as he had to refuse the offer. But Somia began pulling him, forcing him to have lunch with them. While he tried to refuse, Iris suddenly asked if he didn't seem to like public areas. He apologized, saying there were too many people, so it was a little problematic. Iris told him they could eat right where they were, as she didn't mind a quiet spot. Iris even asked Somia how she felt. Somia replied that as long as Nosomo was with them, anywhere would be fine. He then told Iris that she didn't need to use any formalities when addressing him, as in Al-Khazam. One's homeland didn't matter as much as before. She replied that she understood. He then asked if Iris's friend Thelma was joining them. Iris replied that Professor Jihad had called Thelma to his office, and Thelma had told her to go ahead and have lunch without her. Hearing Jihad's name, Nosomo remembered that Jihad was the headmaster of Solmanati Academy and had fought on the front lines of the war against demons 20 years ago. Jihad is considered one of the strongest swordsmen in the world. The greatest migration happened in the lands of Arkmill 20 years ago. It began in the northeastern part and later escalated into a disaster known as the Great Invasion. Hundreds of thousands were killed in the process, which caused a wave of refugees seeking shelter in neighboring countries. It was the first time in history that all the nations came together to cooperate with each other. They sent massive armies to face the demon horde, and in the end, they were able to push back their overwhelming numbers alone. But the damage from the demon invasion took a heavy toll on the surrounding lands, and many of them fell. With entire countries lost, the refugees flooded the ruined streets of the recovering lands. It was a time when people even wondered if the world would ever recover from such a state. With the immediate threat gone, many countries faced civil unrest. Countries across the continent suffered enormous damage. The final decision made was to build a place where refugees could live and train new warriors for the next impending invasion. They built an academy and named it Solmanati Academy. Each country advanced its research to develop different combat styles and other types of technology. They created Alkazam as a place for people to come together and advance their research. Seeing Nosomo so lost in thought, Iris told him not to worry about Thelma. Suddenly, Nosomo saw a dog face on Iris's bag and smiled mischievously. Seeing this, Iris asked confusedly what was wrong. Nosomo replied that he had noticed something unexpected, which made him laugh. Somia smiled and said that her sister Iris loved dogs, but she thought cats were cuter. Iris told Somia that she was wrong, as dogs were cuter, especially puppies, since nothing else could compare. On the other hand, Nosomo was confused about what the sisters were discussing, wondering if they were really arguing over which animal was cuter. Somia told Iris that she understood what she said, but she still thought cats were cuter. Iris became a little serious and said that Somia must have seen how a dog wags its tail and follows you around, which is so adorable that it makes anyone want to hug it. Somia picked up Shadow and asked Iris to look, saying that whenever she patted the cat, he purred and made the cutest sound they could hear. Their debate continued, and Nosomo just laughed tensely a little to show them. Iris noticed and apologized, saying they had both gotten carried away. She asked Somia to discuss it later. Somia also replied yes, as it was their 357th meeting about cats versus dogs. After that, Somia asked Iris and Nosomo how they had met. Nosomo said it was just a coincidence, while Iris shared that Nosomo was the one who sliced a demonic bear in less than a second. Hearing this, Somia became excited and asked if it was really Nosomo. Iris said that Thelma was about to be attacked, but thanks to him, she was saved. Nosomo tensely replied that it wasn't true, as in fact, he was the lowest-ranking student in the school because of his suppressed abilities. Iris said it was very strange that he could make so many blades and still be in the lowest class. Nosomo explained that it was too strong an attack to use in the academy, and he had been told it could possibly kill someone. That's why he had to train his body to its limit. His magic was also so low that he could attack only once with the amount he had, and without any chi enhancements, which didn't help much either. Iris confirmed that it meant if he used any enhancements, he could fire only a single chi blade or two. She even asked why he hadn't joined a party. He replied that no one wanted to group with him. Iris asked if it was because of his suppressed abilities. Nosomo said yes. Iris then said that she wasn't sure if it was the right thing to say, but he didn't need to be strong to be in a party. Moreover, he was familiar with the forest of Spachim, and that knowledge alone would surely boost his priority on the list. Mo asked confusedly what made her think that. She said that after he left them, he went into the deeper woods, which meant he had obviously spent the night there. The forest of Spachim was an extremely dangerous place, filled with demons. By all accounts, the forest was no place for someone inexperienced or unskilled. In reality, Nosomo had actually stayed the night with Shino, which was one of the safest places in the forest. After all, it was a place where a dragon-class adventurer lived. But yes, Nosomo had also spent some nights alone in the forest, as sometimes Shino would throw him out of the house in anger. Iris then asked why he hadn't started a party, whether it was because of his breakup with Lisa, the animosity from the students, or some other reason. Nosomo became very serious, as he began remembering past incidents of Lisa's stares. Seeing his expression, Iris asked him not to take it the wrong way, as she didn't know the truth about that fight. She wasn't one to make assumptions about things she wasn't sure of. Suddenly he stood up and apologized to Somia as he left first, saying this as he walked away. Somia then looked at Iris with a tense expression. Iris told her that Nosomo wasn't well liked by the students at the academy. Because of his lack of success, he was treated like a worthless nobody at school. All Iris wanted was to know him better, as he was the one who saved her friend with an attack she had never seen before. She just wanted to ask him personally about the rumors. Actually, Iris was at the forefront of social popularity. She had only been around people who respected her, so the idea of Nosomo being ostracized and pushed around was impossible for her to understand. There was an obvious distrust of others and deep-seated insecurity in his heart. It was something they could only see in those whose hearts had been broken and torn apart. But this was the first time her words had ever been rejected by someone, and it was more than she could have anticipated. The point was that all she wanted to tell him was that she didn't want to believe the rumors just like that. She was tense because she hadn't thought it through and hadn't expected this outcome. Iris told Somia that she might have said too much and felt like she had done something wrong. Somia said it would be better for her to apologize to Nosomo. Iris agreed and decided to do it the next time she met him. On the other hand, Nosomo was thinking that escaping reality had already become a habit for him. The pain from training helped him stay grounded, but part of him wanted to go back and hear what Iris wanted to say, but he needed to distract his thoughts with training to push the pain away. He thought that Lisa wasn't the only one who had given up on him, and most of his friends had left him without a second thought, which made them all the same. On the way, he saw Ken, Lisa, and another friend talking to each other about the exams. Seeing Nosomo, a girl gave a fierce look while Lisa kept a poker face. Ken tried to greet Nosomo, as it had been a while since they last met. Nosomo replied to Ken, and then tried to talk to the other two, but the girl ferociously told him not to talk to her as if they were friends, and asked why the hell he was still attending the academy. She was actually Camilla Court Tuknos, Lisa's first ever friend since she arrived at the academy. Camilla was also Nosomo's friend during their first year, but she was the one who rejected him the quickest and harshest when the rumors began to spread. Lisa angrily asked what Nosomo wanted. Nosomo knew that he had tried countless times to prove his innocence, but every attempt was in vain as everyone around him rejected his pleas, and his pain began to harden over time. All he wanted to do was to clear up the misunderstanding. However, they all would not let him speak or defend himself, so he gave up. He began to hold the pain inside, and he sank deeper into his own abyss. He began to reject the idea that he could ever make things right and focused on working to recover his mental health. But in the end, he only made his situation worse. His mind was shaken by a pain that had broken the balance of his emotions, which constantly swung back and forth like a hurricane. That's why he wanted to talk to Lisa, and for this, he asked her how she had been. But to his shock, Lisa ferociously told him not to come any closer, saying she just couldn't look at him and that he should leave and never come back. When Nosomo was still standing in shock, Lisa stood up and said she would leave if he didn't. When Lisa left, Camilla angrily kicked him in the stomach and asked if he couldn't see how upset Lisa was. Before leaving, Camilla also called him a traitorous idiot. Ken looked at Nosomo with pity, but left without saying anything. Nosomo, fully angry, rushed deep into the forest. On the way, Shino saw him and tensed, as she hadn't been able to accomplish anything that day. Nosomo thought his desire for suicide had faded, but after meeting Iris and then Lisa, all the feelings he had buried came rushing back into his heart. On the way, he suddenly stopped noticing his surroundings and realized the path was leading him deeper into the woods. Upon checking his compass, he was stunned to see that it wasn't working either. It was the first time something had caused an issue with his compass. He knew there were many ways to encounter demons in the forest, so he could stay in one spot for a while, but it was barely safe. There was too much fog, so he thought he could build a shelter and wait for it to clear. He decided to stay in the trees and gather his senses, but suddenly, he felt something and wondered what the hell was out there. Out of nowhere, a strange light shot toward his face, blinding him for a few seconds. He tensely shouted, asking what the hell it was. When he follows the light, the area around Nosomo suddenly changes, and he nervously wonders what is happening, because no matter how he sees it, it does not look like Alakazam. Again, he feels a strange aura nearby, around him. To his shock, a dark shadow appears, and when he looks up, he is stunned to see a black creature. It is a creature with heavy presence and a sign of complete power, a creature that should have faded into history and legends. It is legendary and known as a dragon. The dragon rushes toward Nosomo to attack. Nosomo runs and somehow dodges the strike. He knows he needs to run, so he uses smoke grenades that he often uses in the forest to escape monsters. He decides to run toward the light to get out, since he followed it to get inside. But he cannot escape as the dragon uses its roar to block his path. A dragon can even blast humans just by roaring. By a few inches, Nosomo survives that roar. The next moment, when he sees his surroundings, he has no words to describe it, as all sound disappears and the hill where the dragon landed has turned into a crater big enough to fit the whole Solmanati Academy. Nosomo first drinks some potions to recover from his injuries. After that, the dragon starts using spiritual magic. It is magic of the spirits, and it is different from the magic that non-spirits use. It does not need to be processed elsewhere, so it can be activated as soon as the spirit chooses to use it. Compared to other types of magic, spiritual magic is much faster. Still, Nosomo takes out his sword and thinks to fight back, but the attack is so fast and heavy that he cannot even stand his ground. He gets badly injured by it, and when he tries to stand up, the dragon punches him again. At that moment, he sees scenes from his past life, thinking about how he wants to support Lisa's dream. He still thinks that, even now. He also thinks about Shino, because despite being rough, she is a good person. Norn and Anri also cared about him. He then remembers Iris, because even though she tried to convince him that she would not judge him based on rumors, he was still always like that, unable to do anything in important situations. Just when he is about to be crushed by the dragon, Shino comes out of nowhere and saves him. She shouts at him, asking what he is doing. She says that when she lost sight of him in the fog, she started looking for him, but now it looks like he is in a dire situation. Deep down, she thinks about how she always defeated magical beasts that were too strong for Nosomo. But this time, with its 5 differently colored wings and jet-black body, it is clear that the creature is none other than the legendary Dragon King. She tells Nosomo that she never thought she would have to face a monster with such legendary status at this age. Hearing this, Nosomo is stunned and asks, "What? The Dragon King?" Shino explains that its name is Tiiamat, and around 5,000 years ago, it began eating its own species before being sealed by them. Nosomo also remembers reading that the Dragon King Tiiamat even ate its own kind and was feared as the heresy of heresies. It is a legendary dragon who disappeared from the face of the earth 5,000 years ago when it was sealed. Shino tells Nosomo that he is very unlucky to encounter such a godly creature. Seeing him cough, she realizes that his organs must have been damaged from inside. She asks him to run away while she keeps the monster distracted. He nervously asks what about her. Shino says that if they stay together like this, they would not be able to escape. She uses her power to push him back and tells him to run away without looking back. He does not want to, but her power forces him to go far away. She then uses a phantom blade attack on the dragon's leg, but to her shock, it does not damage the dragon at all. After that, the dragon attacks her with spiritual magic. At first, she manages to slice through 5 light rays with one blow. Using her chi, she destroys more light rays. Next, she blocks an attack of 20 light rays. But the waves keep coming, and there seems to be no end to them. She has no hands left, so she starts using the sheath of her sword. Over time, the power of the light rays begins to grow even stronger. She is able to slash more than 5 light rays, but over time, the number of light rays she can stop begins to decrease, and the sudden depletion of her chi starts to take its toll. She realizes that she can barely keep the dragon occupied. She understands that even at her best, she could not have done better in the past, as she would not have been able to handle it then either. Her arm muscles start to ache, and she begins to lose control of her body. Extreme exhaustion and the loss of her 5 senses start to overwhelm her. She shouts that she is just a useless wench who is even worse than her lousy disciple. Slowly, her sense of taste disappears, and her arms and skin become numb, as if they were anesthetized. Even the smell of the burning rays disappears, and the sound of the exploding light rays begins to fade away. She realizes all of this and thinks she must be dying. With that, she feels she can finally escape from her idiot disciple. But for some reason, she does not understand why her heart feels empty. She wonders if she has been enjoying the time she spent with her disciple. Shino finally thinks that if she manages to save her disciple, then it is not bad at all. But suddenly, she hears Nosomo's voice shouting, "Master!" She is stunned and tells him to hurry and run away. But the dragon also sees Nosomo and uses its spiritual magic to attack. The light rays rush toward him to attack, so she uses her chi ability, Light Destroyer. It is a chi sent through the ground, released beneath the enemy. This lifts the enemy into the air and destroys it with the power of chi. Among all the chi abilities that Shino possesses, this one has the greatest range and power. It is a special type of chi ability. However, due to the sudden depletion of chi, the power of the ability is lost. Nosomo is hit by the dragon's light rays, sent flying into the air, and then falls to the ground very harshly. At that moment, he vomits blood, and his body begins to weaken. His body is surrounded by the presence of death. It is more painful than any previous time he was attacked. The blood loss begins to slow his brain functions, and he has no strength even for flashbacks. The cruel reality falls on him, and he starts to wonder if he is going to die. Suddenly, he thinks that he does not want to die or give up. His rejection of death awakens his power, and the stagnant ice in his heart begins to break free. If one removes all excuses and the urge to escape from cruel reality, the only thing that rises from it is the desperation to live. It is basically burning the last of one's life and letting the light surge so it does not go out. Suddenly, a strong will to live explodes within him, and his concentration soars to its limit, sharpening his sense of time. He becomes motivated and picks up his sword to attack. When the dragon attacks in defense, Nosomo can easily see its movements. He feels that the attacks are too slow for him to handle. He begins to wonder why he has always been this slow, as it always feels the same. The slowness is like his whole body is bound by metal chains, stopping him from moving forward. He angrily thinks that the chains are the real culprit, so he ferociously shouts for them not to bother him. At that moment, it shows that the chains binding him break from his anger. There was no way Nosomo could break the metal chain so easily, and the idea that these shining metal chains appeared from nowhere must be something his own mind had created. But Nosomo was aware of these chains and felt sure he could break free from them. So because of the sudden speed, the dragon lost sight of Nosomo for only a single moment. During that brief time, Nosomo tried to use his phantom blade, a chi pressed thinner and sharper than one strand of hair. It moved at the same speed a sword is swung. However, Nosomo's attack still failed to cut through the cornea, despite all his effort alone. Actually, even though the dragon was a spiritual creature, it still had a physical body, which meant it also carried an animal-like side within itself. So when one of its sensory organs is attacked, it tries to protect itself, and its defense responses work much like those of humans and other animals. The dragon used so much power and slammed into the ground, causing an earthquake. However, at that same moment, the ground broke apart beneath it suddenly. It seemed the dragon had fallen into an already existing underground cave below. Until then, Nosomo was not able to move freely because of the violent ground tremors, but he was easily able to protect himself from landing. Nosomo rushed towards the dragon Tiiamat, but Tiiamat was the king of spirits and could use powerful magic equal to true spiritual magic alone. So before Nosomo could take even 3 steps, Tiiamat began casting a spell, hoping to completely erase Nosomo. But Nosomo noticed this and shouted that he would not allow the dragon to succeed with all his strength then. He, having freed himself from the chains of his sealed power, rushed forward at very high speed. Moreover, Shino's light destroyer also helped Nosomo's dash, in a way where it pushed away some of the impacts around Nosomo, while also bending the light rays that helped him make a path between him and Dragon Tiiamat. At that moment, he was moving at a speed faster than Shino had ever reached. On the other side, even the dragon's breath counted as spiritual magic, so it could be used without forming circles or casting spells. The dragon Tiiamat grew irritated by the small human's resistance and became wild. Because of this, Tiiamat wished to destroy the world he was trapped in, so he began to pour all of his power into his 5-colored wings fully. But at that moment, something began happening on its own. Shino saw the dragon's power gathering in the sky. That world was actually made to seal Tiiamat whenever he went astray. So Shino realized this and wondered if the world was trying to seal Tiamat's power itself. She understood that if it was going to happen, then there must be a way to suppress it. Tiamat, who had been weakened by the sealing process, had become similar to an S-rank adventurer. She saw the chance, so she shouted and asked Nosomo to go for the attack now. Nosomo, without thinking, used the phantom blade attack, and he sliced at the scales below Tiamat's throat. The compressed chi within the blade burst open inside his throat then. Nosomo swung his sword in a way that looked like a clear path laid out right in front of him. Using the momentum gained from the first strike, he turned his body around one more time and attacked the dragon. Still, even after the damage Dragon Tiiamat had already taken, he was not defeated yet. Tiiamat tried to shake off Nosomo and focused his chi into his right arm with a ground-shaking roar. So, with all the power left in Nosomo, he gripped his sword, still stuck deep in Tiamat's body, and shouted that this was the end. Nosomo attacked with the Light Destroyer attack. It was an attack where the flow of chi, equal to a high-level magic spell, burst out from his sword with force. So his attack ended up blowing the dragon's head off, along with the nerves inside it. At last, the dragon was defeated, and his body dropped down onto the ground. Nosomo also fell to the ground. Shino rushed toward him and shouted, calling him an idiot. At that moment, slowly, he faded out. The next moment his eyes opened, and he saw himself bound with chains, standing above the water. When he looked down, he saw the dragon below him, inside the water. He felt a little scared at that moment. Then he nervously wonders if it is a dream and slowly starts opening his eyes. Shino stood close to his face and asks if he is awake. Seeing her so close, he gets scared and shouts monster. Shino angrily asks that she had been taking care of him for 3 days, and this is the thanks she gets in return. Hearing this, he feels shocked and tries to sit straight, but his body hurts. There he realizes that even though it only felt like 10 minutes had passed, in truth, it has been 3 days since his fight with Tiiamat. He saw that no other furniture was present besides the bare minimum needed for day-to-day life, so it's none other than his master's cabin. When Nosomo comes to his full senses, he first apologizes to Shino and then thanks her for treating his wounds. She shows an angry face, but deep down she feels very happy to hear thanks from him after efforts. Nosomo also feels overwhelmed at that moment, but soon he remembers the fight and asks about her condition and whether she has any injuries. She waves her hand and says that she is fine. It's just that she used a bit too much chi, but it's nothing to worry about. Hearing this, he lets a sigh of relief. After that, she tells him she has watched over him for the past 3 days, and there is something important she needs to tell him. Seeing her so serious, he feels shocked and says, "Okay." Shino announces that he defeated the Tiamat dragon inside the sealed world. Nosomo asks confusion what sealed world means is. She explains that it is a world created by the dragons in order to seal the Dragon King of Ruin. Although Tiamat himself was already seen as nothing more than a legend, the story of the sealed world was even more doubtful. He curiously asks how they ended up there. She replies that a fellow dragon may know the answer, but they are humans, not spirits. So this is not something they can understand easily. Finally, she tells him that since he defeated the dragon, he has absorbed its power and can now be called a dragon slayer. A true dragon slayer. Someone like this has not appeared for the past several hundred years. In truth, dragon slayers are inheritors of great strength, the very form of massive power. There were some who used spells that could not be explained by known magic, or were able to awaken powerful superhuman abilities. They are the kind of beings that appear only in old fairy tales. Nosomo knows that history clearly recorded that dragon slayers last appeared 300 years ago, when the Cremazone Empire was first founded and became the center point. That is why he feels completely shocked to learn that he is now a dragon slayer. But suddenly, his katana is thrown toward him by Shino, telling him that there is one more thing they need to check. He was confused about why she gave him his katana. Out of nowhere, to his shock, he was attacked by Shino. He already thought that he would not make it in time to block. But to his surprise, he saw that nothing had happened to him. When he opened his eyes, he realized he had blocked the attack just in time. So he asks Shino, confused, what had just happened. Shino explains that after becoming a demon slayer, his physical abilities have grown stronger. Moreover, she knew from the start that he had a talent for using curved blades, but because of his suppressing ability, his weak muscle strength and limited chi greatly affected his quick movements. Until now, they had no choice but to rely on footwork and breathing techniques, but dragon slayers inherit the dragon's power, making them much stronger. Upon hearing all that, he felt a bit excited, but then she told him that it seems he has not grown much stronger. It is all because the great effect of his suppression ability has completely restrained his increased powers. He felt sad about that, but without wasting time, she asks again. While fighting Tiamat, he was able to break free from the suppression ability, right? So, could he do it again? Hearing the word release, he remembers the chain that binds him. Meanwhile, Shino keeps talking, saying she has never heard of anyone being able to release their ability suppression. He nervously asks if she cannot see the chains that bind him. She directly says no, as she cannot see anything. Then she asks what he will do now, since the power he acquired is exceptionally strong. Great power tends to attract all sorts of things, whether it is strength, status, glory, or authority. Once it begins, there seems to be no end to it. She asks him again what he wants to do for the time being. While he thinks, she begins to say that she has already considered it, and he has no reason to become any stronger than this. Even if it is to support the girl he loves, that girl is no longer his lover, as she does not feel the same way he does. Shino also asks him that, furthermore, he was not using the techniques she taught him, right? He tries to give a reason, but before he can, she tells him that he does not need to use them against human opponents. If he were to use the phantom blade on a wooden dummy, anyone would know not to let their guard down around him. Also, the swordplay she taught him is extremely rare on their continent. Mastering it will at least prevent him from hitting rock bottom. The reason he fell so far was that he could not face reality and gave up. It is clear that, although he resisted, those around him still rejected him. In an environment where he was completely alone with no one to help him, he twisted his reasons for becoming strong, which caused him to break his own path and turn it into an excuse to escape. Claiming it was for Lisa's sake, he stayed at the academy doing nothing but sword training. The fact that he made no effort to meet the person who should have been at the center of his problems proves this. The truth is, Nosomo does not see his present. He is still trapped by his past. Knowing this, Shino says that she understands he would not be able to make a choice so easily. For now, it is better for him to focus on recovering from his wounds. Eventually, he will be forced to make a choice. She also doubts that he would be able to return to town in one piece with the injuries he has. So, it is better for him to stay in her cabin. After that, when she places the katana back in its sheath, she says that there is something she has not told him yet. He feels tense, wondering what more there could be. Suddenly, to his surprise, she hugs him and says, "Welcome back." She pats his back, saying that he fought well. Nosomo notices dark circles under her eyes, and her breathing is a little rough. He wonders if it is because she has been there taking care of him the whole time. He happily says yes, he is back. Saying this, he falls asleep. After that, she mutters that it is really unimaginable that Nosomo would be the first dragon slayer to appear in hundreds of years. She then lets him sleep peacefully, believing that both his body and mind need rest. She nervously wonders just how much strain his mind has been under, given the immense exhaustion he had to endure. Then the story about Shino slowly began appearing, as Shino was not born in any country inside the continent Arkmill, but on an island nation in the Far East. She was born as the second daughter of the family head of the famous Mikagura swordplay. Able to learn swordplay in the best possible place from early childhood, Shino stayed absorbed in training, and in the blink of an eye, her talent showed. Though there were people who mocked her for using a sword while being a woman, Shino's father trained her exactly as she wished. Her mother also supported her dream. Even her older sister stayed firmly by her side. Shino's battles always ended in victory, and her proud military service was praised by everyone. She even received praise and a reward given by the highest noble of the country. This was the time when Shino's sister introduced her to a young man who would become her disciple. Soon after their meeting, Shino was able to feel love that quickly bloomed. After confirming each other's feelings, they became engaged. With the status of a respected family, unmatched strength and honor and love, she stood at the peak happiness. However, when she was about to exchange rings with the groom for marriage, a baseless charge of adultery was shouted at Shino, throwing the wedding ceremony into sudden chaos everywhere. Also, because of the false evidence, the marriage was called off. Shino tried to prove her innocence, but nobody listened to her. Then 1 year later, Shino learned the identity of the real culprit who framed her. It's actually her own sister. Her sister told her that when she heard the news of the marriage, she decided that she would never accept it. In rage, Shino's sister took everything away from her and made sure she would never gain happiness in her life. Also, nobody was going to defend her inside the family. At last, her sister also said that she would live a happy life with that man. 3 days later, Shino left the Mikagura family without saying a word to anyone. She left her home, her country, everything behind on that island, and slowly traveled all the way to the forest of Spatium, a foreign land untouched by humans. She settled there quietly, living alone and never forming ties with anyone. The story returns to the present, where Shino cries, saying they are strangely similar to each other now, as someone who was abandoned in the same way. At first, she hated how much Nosomo reminded her of her own past self, but now it felt opposite. She was very sad and crying because her exhausted chi would not recover. Instead, it would slowly fade away and vanish. Basically, she had a disease known as death sleep. Those who suffer from this illness slowly lose their chi, their source of life, until they die. It is said the cause is pushing their limits too far, damaging the core of their body that holds their life force. There are only a few cases of people recovering from death sleep, but the cure has not been found yet. Now she knows that things rarely go the way anyone wants. There was so much she wanted to say to him. Since she had only taught him sword techniques during the time they spent together, that truly reflected her nature. But there was one last thing she wanted to tell him, and until that moment, she would use all her strength to make it happen. The scene then moved to 1 week later in Alakazam City, where Nosomo had arrived with Shino. He thanked Shino for coming with him. She replied that it was only natural, as she was his master, after all. Nosomo felt very confused, because even during his training with his master, the medicines in her bag did not heal instantly like store-bought potions. Instead, they slowly boosted the body's natural healing without overworking it. Lately, his master had been acting differently. Normally, when she was upset, she would use martial arts along with a stream of insults, all under the pretext of discipline. But recently, she had been stumbling over her words in a strange way. He also felt that she was trying to show her caring side, and now she was even coming with him to the town. Shino praised Alakazam, saying that seeing it for the first time, it was truly a massive city. Nosomo asked curiously if she had really never been to Alakazam before. She replied no, saying she never wanted to visit before, but now she felt she would regret not coming sooner. Nosomo then asked if she wanted him to show her around the city. She asked fiercely if he did not have school, pointing out that he had already been absent without permission for a week and that it would cause him problems. He nodded tensely in agreement. After that, they went inside. There, she saw many unique things and curiously asked Nosomo about them. He smiled, remembering that he had been just like her when he first came to Alakazam. Finally, they reached the academy. At the gate, she told him that she was going back to the forest. He bowed to thank her, but suddenly he heard the bell ring. He began panicking and rushed toward the class, thinking he should not lose any more points. Shino then said that he had already been absent without notice, so she did not think there was any need to worry about being late. She also asked him to come back to their cabin once his classes were over, as there were more things she wanted to talk about. He was surprised and asked if she meant that there was more she wanted to tell him. She said they would talk when the time was right, but for now he should focus on his classes. He then ran off to attend. After that, she thought it was a shame that her disciple was not there to guide her, but decided to walk around for a while. So, Solmanati Academy's final exams were tests where the results of two parts, the practical and the written exam, mainly decided the rank a student would get for the next year. If a high-ranking student got bad grades, they would drop to a lower rank, and if their grades did not meet the minimum requirements, they could be held back or, at worst, forced to leave the academy. To Nosomo, who usually got low grades, this was a big problem. On the other hand, Nosomo's class teacher, Henri, did not specifically ask the reason for his unexpected absences, so Nosomo's explanation was vague. The other students did not want to draw the teacher's attention, so they just acted like they believed there was nothing more to it. No one brought up the topic again, and with that, the morning classes ended. The scene then shifted to lunch break in front of the staff room, where Henri called Nosomo over to talk. She asked fiercely if he was hiding something, saying that having unexcused absences for a whole week was completely unusual. He replied that it was not a big deal, as he had just been injured when he went into the forest and was attacked by a monster. Henri shouted that it was a big deal, and asked what kind of monster had attacked him and where it happened. Nosomo said that it was a mad bear, and he did not remember the exact spot, but he thought it was somewhere in the east of the forest. Henri asked if he meant one of the 3 mad bear siblings. He said yes, upon which she glared at him angrily. She then asked about his injuries. He replied that he had been bedridden with a fever for a short time, but he was fine now. She asked sadly why he had not tried to contact them, since he lived in the dorms and could have at least reached her. He explained that his fever had been so bad he could not even move. Moreover, none of his classmates really cared about him, so no one could pass the message either. Deep down, Nosomo felt sad for lying to her, but he could not bring himself to tell the truth. Suddenly, to his shock, Henri began crying, saying that he really did not trust her at all and asked if she was truly that unreliable and incompetent to him. He felt confused and replied tensely that it was not what she thought and asked why she felt that way. She responded that it was because he had not told her the truth. Since the 3 mad bears had been defeated by Iris's party about 10 days ago, she knew something was wrong. She could not see it clearly, but she could tell he was moving as if he were still injured, and the medicine used on him did not smell like the ones sold in town. He was stunned to hear it and wondered if his movements had really been that obvious, and how she even knew the difference in medicine. Henri stepped very close to him and asked him to talk to her. His heart raced from the closeness. He knew that Henri was the kind of girl who could captivate a man without even trying, and she was not even aware of it herself. He felt like he could tell her anything. The scene then shifted to Iris, where Somia asked if Iris had been able to clear up the misunderstanding with Nosomo. Thelma looked confused and asked what misunderstanding. Iris said that a few days ago she and Nosomo had talked about some things, and something had happened during it. Thelma then asked if Iris's absence during lunch breaks and after school lately was because of Nosomo. Iris replied yes, saying she thought it would be wrong to suddenly barge into his classroom. So she had been waiting for him at the front entrance, but had not been able to see him. Apparently, he had been absent from school for a while. Iris even wondered if Nosomo had come to the academy at all. Thelma was surprised to see Iris care so much about a male student, as she had never seen her like this before. On the other hand, Nosomo somehow ran away from Henri, making an excuse about his classes. Somia then asked Iris if she could invite Nosomo to her birthday party. Iris replied that it was a private party. Somia said that Nosomo was her friend, and he had helped her get back the bracelet Iris had given her, so she had always wanted to repay him in some way. She said sadly that she did not know what had happened to him, and that he looked a bit lonely when he smiled. Still, she wanted her friends to smile, even if just a little. Hearing this, Iris agreed and said that Somia was right, and that Nosomo would be invited to the party. At this point, Iris did not know Nosomo's past. She could only imagine how far he had been pushed into a corner. At first, she was just satisfying her curiosity. However, after seeing a glimpse of the effort Nosomo had put in, she began to sympathize with him. That's why she felt frustrated that she had not cleared up the misunderstanding with him yet. Iris happily told Somia that she would make sure to talk to him and clear up the misunderstanding. Once she did, she would invite him to the birthday party. Somia smiled and thanked Iris. The scene then showed Henri's angry face staring at Nosomo while he was warming up in the practical class. As the teacher's assistant, Henri often joined classes like this and helped directly when needed. Although the rank 10 classes had at most one assistant instructor assigned to them, rank 1 classes had several. In the afternoon practical lessons, there were demonstrations, such as the ritual magic from the other day. At the end, there were also mock battles. Mars went to Nosomo and said that he was unlucky, as he had again been chosen as his opponent in the Duel mock battle. Mars shouted that he knew Nosomo would not be able to win, no matter who his opponent was, so there was nothing to worry about. Saying this, Mars started laughing. On the other hand, Nosomo thought that his injuries were mostly healed, and though there was still a bit of discomfort, his body was moving the way he wanted. The feeling of swinging the practice sword also was not much different from his own sword. Here, it was revealed that he could release his suppressed ability again, but he decided not to, as the uneasy feeling from his dream made him feel like something inside him might break. The problem was that he was unsure whether to use the chi techniques he had learned from his master or not. But before he could decide, Mars started the fight by rushing toward him to attack. Nosomo also gets ready in a defensive stance. Mars jumps to attack him, shouting and telling him to get crushed by his sword right now. Nosomo already saw it was a downward swing from above, but soon he realized it was a trick, so he quickly changed his stance. Mars was surprised to see the changed stance, but he still attacked with the move he chose. To his shock, Nosomo easily blocked the attack he thought was the strongest. Nosomo strikes back with a slash. When Mars dodges it, Nosomo rushes and hits Mars in the stomach with his elbow. Then Mars bends in pain and Nosomo hits his face with knee. From this, Mars got angry and shouted, asking Nosomo to not act proud about it. Seeing Mars rush again towards him, Nosomo wonders just how much chi Mars really has. Mars now uses Dustwind Blade to attack Nosomo. It is a chi skill where the user's sword gets wrapped in wind that can easily tear apart objects with great force. The technique creates a dense, packed wind that sends strong pressure, making any enemy with weak defense or attack get easily blown away during the middle fight. Along with that, the wind around his blade makes his slashes faster and stronger too, so Mars begins swinging his sword from many different directions at once without stopping now. First, he made a diagonal slash, then a quick left swipe. Nosomo kept watching the attack pattern and tried to stay at a safe distance to dodge the attack each time. Also, Nosomo can see that Mars' attacks are now more repeated than before, so he can read 2 or 3 moves ahead. Even Mars feels surprised and keeps wondering why his sword cannot reach Nosomo. He feels shocked because his power is known as the Wind Spirit's Protection. For the wind element alone, the power and accuracy of spells and chi skills are greatly increased. Mars is thinking that if Nosomo was the same as before, he should be seeing Nosomo make weak blocks, slow dodges, and bad choices, but this time different. Actually, under the effect of the suppression skill, Nosomo would not be able to stop a downward slash attack, even if he powered himself up with chi. But now, in his current state, he was able to block the attack without losing his stance. This was because becoming a Dragon Slayer had boosted his physical abilities. Nosomo notices that he can also use the techniques taught by his master, but he still has not found any chance for a counterattack yet. On the other hand, Mars thinks that with his sword speed and power boosted by Dustwind Blade, he cannot let himself be outdone by any of the guys in the 10th rank. The thing is, Mars is shocked because to him, Nosomo is near the bottom, so he should not be able to see through his moves. Meanwhile, Nosomo feels happy that he can finally fight the way he wants. Mars wonders that Nosomo's skill is suppression, which sets a fixed limit on his power. So, if Nosomo can see through his attacks without those limits, then how much must he have trained to overcome that barrier? Mars ferociously attacks Nosomo, shouting that he would not accept losing. Nosomo dodges the strike, and the wind blade slams into the ground, scattering the wind everywhere. Mars realizes that Nosomo did it on purpose. Nosomo used a chi move called Dance of Flash Step. Flash Step is a growth-type skill that lets the user move instantly in a straight line or along complex curves. It is a high-level technique that needs strong legs and a good sense of balance to fully use Flash Step's power. It also requires precise muscle control so the whole body moves together without wasting any effort. The wind blade from the sword gathers and charges forward like a battering ram. Because of the fog, Mars cannot track Nosomo. At this moment, Nosomo gets a chance to strike. When Nosomo begins drawing his sword, even Mars feels that it's the end. But suddenly the bell rings, and Henri announces that the mock battle is over. So the moment class ends, Henri comes over and asks if they can talk for a moment. Nosomo apologizes to her, saying he still has something to do, and rushes away. She tries to stop him, but Nosomo does not stop. Seeing Nosomo, he tensely wonders what kind of strange feeling he has, as if Nosomo is hiding his true power. Soon he thinks that it's not true. He feels confused. If it's not true and Nosomo is nobody, then why on earth is he getting irritated? Suddenly he smiles as he realizes that, compared to him, he could not handle the guys who secretly stir trouble from the shadows, even though Nosomo was weak and seemingly powerless. But more than that, Nosomo is still the person Mars despises most, because Nosomo keeps fighting back and growing stronger than anyone else, yet Mars failed to see this about him. Iris knows that he cannot even imagine the effort it would take to reach where Nosomo stands because he has never seen anyone with the ability of suppression surpass the limits set on them. Actually, Mars was using Nosomo just as a distraction, but now he realizes that Nosomo has definitely become stronger. He soon wonders if Nosomo was strong all along, and they just never noticed. On the other side, Iris goes to the 10th rank students class, but no one is there. She remembers it's practical training time and thinks that maybe she can meet Nosomo if she waits at the front gate. So she runs toward the gate, but as she is about to reach it, she sees Nosomo running somewhere with a sword. She tries to shout and stop him, but he does not hear and keeps running wherever he is going. She feels sad as she once again does not get to talk to him, but she is also confused about why he is in such a rush and hurry. It was revealed that Nosomo was running toward his master's cabin because someone who had never come to Alakazam City before had entered it with him, and then being specifically told to return was kind of worrying for him. He realized that the fight with Tiiamat had some effect on his master. When he reached, he saw that she was munching peacefully. Nosomo said that his exams were approaching, so it would be bad if he could not get some last-minute studying in. Shino responded that she thought he could accompany her for the day. She even blabbered that he was not a man if he did not accept an invitation from a beautiful woman. Seeing her like that, he smiled and sat munching snacks, saying that she was too weak for alcohol. She pulled him close, asking him to sit beside her. He tensed and shouted, warning her not to put him in an arm lock, or she would break it. He noticed that it was perfect chi control and use of force, showing the skills of someone used to hurting people. So he asked her if the part about her being a beautiful woman was a lie, since she should have said formerly beautiful. Shino then asked him to talk for a while. After that, she suddenly started rambling about the country she was born in and her family. She told Nosomo that she loved them. She also talked about how she came to the continent and asked him about his hometown and what his family was like. So they both had a mundane conversation. Even though she knew some things about him, she still asked. Shino knew she had taught him swordsmanship, so they always talked about swords. She never taught him anything else, so he had not faced anything beyond that. She never thought they would have such a pleasant conversation again, but deep down, she knew she had always avoided it. She thought she had no right to complain about her disciple, but still, he always cherished her. She wondered if she had been born a few decades later, and if her body were not suffering from diseases, she was sure she would have lived by his side. She knew it was a shame that her wish could not be fulfilled, but she had someone to whom she could leave her heart in the end. She decided to yield to the one by his side who could walk alongside him. Suddenly, she told him to begin his final session, and she started moving toward the battle area. He was surprised and, tensely following her, asked what she meant by final. She responded that she meant this was the last time she could train him, so his final session would be a serious battle to the death against her. Saying this, she rushed to attack him. He did not have time to say anything and started dodging her strikes. He tried to fall back, but she chased him in a split second and punched him in the stomach. From that blow, he ferociously asked what the hell she was trying to do. He thought that since his master did not let him ask questions during training, she would have lectured him one-sidedly, and if he tried to talk back, she would pile on more training, as unreasonably as possible. But this time, it was strange, because even though she had done things that could have killed him, in reality, she never tried to kill. Shino again started slashing at him continuously, her precise, never-ending consecutive blows. Nosomo knew that even when she moved proficiently with her entire body, the attack would reach his arm. The battle continued like that, with him barely dodging or blocking the attacks. It was because he knew that Shino's sword techniques were a composite combat style, with her sheath and martial arts combined. Her sheath, strengthened with chi techniques, could easily break human bones. He noticed that the impact of her attacks was decreasing with each blow, but her strikes were becoming denser, showing a difference in their capabilities. While fighting, the dual-wielding counterattack made him focus his chi on the point of impact for an instant, but it went numb. Continuing to fight, he realized that he had to lessen the impact a little, but his organs were twisted inside, and shallow techniques would not work. In that case, he decided to gamble on his most reliable technique, the Phantom Blade. But to his shock, when he used it, Shino cancelled it out with Phantom Blade as well. He was shocked because he did not know it was possible so easily. Before he could think of the next move, she came close and attacked him. He got injured and fell to the ground. At that time, he thought that to counter Phantom Blade with Phantom Blade, she must have fired a chi blade. Moreover, it needed to be done with perfect accuracy, following the same trajectory as the one he fired. He thought that he could not win against her, but suddenly he heard Shino telling him to release his ability suppression, saying he should know that he could not win against her without doing so. He tensed, knowing it was his only chance, but he was scared of the dream. Since it might be a unique characteristic of a spirit, its soul was probably still living inside him even though its body was dead. He wondered if the suppression ability was also suppressing its soul, along with its power by sheer coincidence. He knew he would have to tear it off himself to win against his master. But he was scared, knowing that if he did that, it would also release Tiiamat, which was unshakable. Shino asked if he was hesitating, and saying this, she attacked him again. This time he felt his vision dimming, sounds becoming distant, and his limbs losing sensation, as if he had fallen into a cold sea of death. He then saw his master and thought she would be right if she were in his place, but to his shock, he realized it looked like she wanted to cry. He wondered why in confusion. Out of nowhere, Shino told him that she was going to die soon. She did not have much time left, as it was a death sleep disease. Most likely, it was during the fight with Tiiamat that the disease entered her body, so she probably had only one more night left. Nosomo was unable to grasp why it had happened. She shared that if she had kept her body's chi a bit more under control, she might have been able to live a little longer. Before she could say anything else, he angrily asked why she had not done that, since even a little more time might have allowed them to do something. Shino responded that he already knew she had come to the forest after being betrayed by her family. Her own sister had set her up, her husband had abandoned her, and those around her had spat in her face. So she ran away to Alakazam continent. He was surprised to hear it from her, as earlier she seemed so happy talking about her family. To his greater surprise, she said she thought both of them were similar. As both of them had run away after being betrayed and mocked by those around them, she did not want to see anyone again, and so she did not care if she died, which was why she was living in the forest. She had nothing, but after many years of hiding in the forest, she met him. And unlike her, he did not try to give up on living in the end. She shared that at first it irritated her how much he reminded her of herself. She sensed something in him that she lacked. Shino cried as she said it was her final selfish request, the last thing she wanted to leave behind after all those years of running away, something she did not want to tell anyone else but him, so she asked if he would accept her final wish. At that moment, Nosomo thought that with her end near, the master had chosen her path long ago, so if he tried to make her live, it would go against her will. He thought that if this was something, she was willing to use her little time left to tell him. He remembered that he had always been running from everything around him at the academy. The fact was, he ran away all the time, but now, if he ran from his master's wish, he would never face her again. More than anything, he did not want his master to show a face like that because of him. At that moment, he broke the chain binding him. The dragon appeared in front of him and started attacking. Nosomo was thrown back, but he soon stood up, remembering Shino's words about accepting the final wish. He shouted and told the dragon that he never asked for it. The dragon blew a fireball, but he slipped through it and struck the dragon with his sword. Finally, a 5-colored light appeared, and Tiamat's power was transferred to him. Seeing this, Shino became very happy to know the answer to her question of whether her disciple would be crushed by the dragon's power. She smiled because Nosomo had released that power by his own will and faced the great dragon's strength he had absorbed. Nosomo also felt the power flowing through his body. It was wearing away his mind and body. He realized that if it continued, he would either be devoured by this power and die, or, at worst, his body would be torn apart and Tiamat revived. But soon he thought there was no time to think. He shouted and told his master that he was coming. She also called him an idiot and told him to come. So the fight began. Although Shino had greater skill, Nosomo's power from becoming a dragon slayer took it to the next level. While fighting, Shino asked if he could not treat a girl more gently. Nosomo shouted and asked what she meant, saying he did not see any weak girl in front of him and that she should consider her own age and strength. Shino replied that a girl is a girl no matter how old she gets. She said he did not understand a woman's heart, which is why his lover had abandoned him. He was stunned and asked how she could say that, as he did not want to hear it from a shut-in hiding in a forest. He even called her a moron and asked if she was not the same as him. Shino angrily asked how he could speak to his master like that. She warned him that he needed to fix his attitude or else she would beat the hell out of him. He also told her to bring it on, as he was tired of her bad temper. Shino then used her chi technique, seismic cannon, which released compressed chi, blowing the opponent away. She shouted at him to die, calling him an enemy of women. Deep down, she was amazed that he had raised his skill to her level in the midst of a deathmatch. Hearing enemy of women, Nosomo shouted that it was his line, as violence and lying about age were crimes. They both used shattering strike against each other. She shouted, telling him to recognize his master's greatness. He shouted back that he would surpass her. The story then explained that the origin of ritual magic comes from rituals performed for gods or spirits. A dance is dedicated to them, like a prayer, and the fusion of dance and combat is called ritual martial arts. So, as they both attacked with their katanas, they performed it as a dance to complete the ritual. It affected the surrounding magic particles, evolving into ritual magic. The term ritual martial arts, rebirth revolution also appeared, where the surrounding magic particles were absorbed, continuously strengthening their bodies. The more they danced, the more their power grew. At the moment when chi and magic took form, they tended to repel each other. Since Nosomo had little training in magic, combining them would normally be impossible. However, through diligent training, the combined effect of his magic control, brought by excellent chi control, a calm mind, and perfect dance, made even that extremely high-level technique possible. Shino was very happy to see his progress and thought that Nosomo had truly grown stronger, as in just under 2 years, he had endured hellish training. It was truly so, as to learn Shino's special move, he had really overcome a battle with a being of absolute strength. Now that he was free from his bonds, only a few people on the entire continent could defeat him. Lastly, Nosomo used Phantom Blade, a technique where a blade infused with ultimate chi is fired at top speed. With that, Shino lost the battle and fell to the ground. The moment she fell to the ground, Nosomo tensely rushed to her side to check. She was smiling and told him that it seemed he had grown strong and that she no longer had anything to teach him about the sword. She shared her happiness, saying she was so glad that he had accepted her final request and understood her feelings. Deep down, she thought it was her own foolishness as his master for not teaching him how to train his heart. She asked him to remember that, if nothing else, it was all right to run away. It was all right to stand still, but he must not avert his eyes from the fact that he had run away and the reality of standing still. If he ever forgot this and became trapped like her, he truly would be unable to move forward. So even if he made mistakes, as long as he did not forget to face the truth, no matter the form, he would be able to move forward someday. He began crying and responded with a yes. Finally, she smiled and said that she was tired, so she was going to rest now and would see him later. He thanked her for everything she had done. Then he stood up and began walking toward the edge of the forest. The scene then moved to another place where Lugato was confronting his master. Lugato told his master that the contract his predecessor had signed was nearing its execution. That man Lugato called master asked if it was a contract her father made and what it was. Lugato explained that it was a contract with a distinguished family in the southern part of the country. The date was approaching for them to retrieve the item they had lent as assistance. Lugato asked his master what she wanted to do. She said she would leave it to him, so finish it quickly, and if there were any flaws, he could discard it. Lugato asked if she was sure, given their country's current situation. It might cause some trouble for the emperor, but that would not be a problem, as they were not defying his wishes. She then said that it seemed someone from the Galunas family would be arriving soon. She asked if they needed to prepare to welcome them soon. Lugato replied that he understood and would go retrieve it immediately. She agreed, saying he should do that. After leaving the room, Lugato felt a little strange. The scene shifted back to Solmanati Academy, showing Nosomo surprised that he had managed to pass. Actually, he had taken the highest number of makeup exams in the Academy's history. His grades had been the lowest by far. Due to his injuries, his practical exams, including the makeup ones, went terribly badly. For the written exams, he answered as if his life depended on it, just managing to avoid failing. But Nosomo thought it was probably better for now, as the Dragon Slayer's power was too much for him to handle. It was because now, with a single punch, he could crush a boulder to pieces, which he could not control. To release that power, it took up to 2 minutes of suppression. So if he used it recklessly, it could probably destroy his mind or body in about 10 seconds. He tensely wondered what to do about Tiiamat and Lisa, feeling like he should run away again, but he decided to face it. When he entered the class, the students around him began mocking him, thinking they had been treated equally because of him. Everyone was mocking him, asking why he could not accept that he had reached his limit. It was clear that at Solmanati Academy, every student aimed to be the best. The Academy placed all of them together to help them grow through competition, but beneath the ranking system, which focused on overall results, it also caused harmful effects. This system, which teaches according to rank to push high-ranking students to greater heights, naturally makes those at the top look down on lower-ranking students. The feeling of hopelessness, as all their efforts went unrewarded. Also, the reality that, though praised as talented in their hometown, they were now at the lowest rank, forgotten. Because of this, a gloomy feeling kept growing, and those who could not endure it turned their attention to those even lower than them, using them as an outlet for their rising inferiority complex. And the person at the very bottom was Nosomo. While everyone mocked and cursed him, Henri suddenly appeared and said that Mr. Caskell would now teach rank 5, making her their new teacher in charge. Henri began giving a speech, saying she knew they were all rank 10. Although it was true they were the lowest in their year, she did not think there was any need to worry, as she had also been the lowest student. So everyone in the class had talent that shone just as brightly as students in other classes. They just did not know how to use it. According to her, what mattered was not other people, but understanding themselves better and keeping on trying. At that moment, she made eye contact with Nosomo, making him start blushing. After that, the class began. Henri started taking attendance, while others kept blabbering about Nosomo or Henri, and for some reason, Mars kept staring at Nosomo. Henri then announced that in the morning, there would be a test on each subject they would study that year, along with a review of various school matters. The regular classes would continue in the afternoon. The scene then shifted to test time, where Nosomo stood tense and confused, wondering what he should do. In the third year, most practical lessons were actually group battles. Its purpose was to help students understand combat involving multiple parties, and to develop the judgment needed to fulfill their roles and handle different situations. Actually, Nosomo's tension came from the fact that even when he spoke to people, they ignored him. He knew that at this rate, he would end up practicing swings alone at the edge of the training grounds, just like last year. He wondered if there was anyone who would form a party with him. Suddenly, to his surprise, Mars approached him to form a party. Everyone started muttering, and even Mars' teammates questioned his choice. Actually, Nosomo had not thought that Mars would team up with him, so he had not asked before. With no other choice, he got ready to join their party. Henri asked if everyone had joined their parties, then said, "Let's begin the practicals." The first battle was Mars' team. The moment it started, 2 students rushed toward Mars to attack. Mars blocked their attacks, trying to hold them off. Nosomo saw this and rushed to help, but was stopped by a wind blade from an opponent. He saw that the female opponent was using wind spirit attacks. Meanwhile, the last member of the opposing team had already rushed toward Nosomo to catch him off guard. Nosomo realized that the opponent's strategy was to take them out one by one. The opponent felt happy, thinking he had caught Nosomo off guard, but to his shock, Nosomo blocked the attack. Even as they started fighting, a fireball suddenly appeared, and both somehow dodged it. Nosomo tensely wondered how it was a fireball, but the surprising part was that it had come from behind. When he looked, he saw his teammates discussing it. One of them asked if it was safe to attack like that, since their own teammate might get caught in it too. The other one responded yes, saying that for them, Nosomo was already good for nothing, so it did not matter. Before Nosomo could react, he was attacked by the enemies, so he started fighting them, but it was very hard. First blocking attacks from a longsword and a dagger, then dealing with his own teammates attacking from behind. Both of his teammates were enjoying it. Nosomo saw that both opponents were using coordinated attacks to eliminate the delay from incantation and knocking the arrow. He realized that neither of them hesitated to get him caught in the fire. Angered, he swung his sword fiercely, forcing the enemies to jump back to dodge. In that moment, he saw his chance and rushed toward his own teammates. Both of them realized he was coming and tried to aim at him, but Nosomo got close and struck them with a spear, knocking them both down. But this time, the opposing team gained the upper hand and rushed toward him. Nosomo realized he had been caught off guard and needed to act quickly. To the opponent's surprise, Mars stepped in and knocked both of them down with surprise blows. After the win, Nosomo angrily stared at his 2 teammates, which scared them. Meanwhile, Henri was waiting for them from behind. On the other hand, Nosomo was actually wondering about Mars, as his attitude toward him had changed. Meanwhile, the 2 cronies received a lecture from Henri, and were then made to clean the training ground as punishment. After that, as Mars walked out of the training ground, he thought about Nosomo. Nosomo had really changed, but he still seemed unaccustomed to fighting. While staying in their blind spots, Nosomo always maneuvered into one-on-one battles with no wasted movements. Even when attacked by allies, he treated them as enemies without losing his composure. Moreover, Mars was even more surprised that, under those circumstances, Nosomo instantly evaded his surprise attack. Mars even doubted himself, wondering if he could have done the same in that situation. Mars wondered where Nosomo had gained so much experience. Since he was ostracized at the academy, he did not even meet the requirements, so he should not have been able to accept requests from the guild either. So he tensely wondered whether Nosomo had really been going to the forest by himself. If not, it was hard to say where Nosomo had learned the moves he liked to use in combat. Finally, Mars decided to see for himself. So actually, Mars decided to follow Nosomo. On the way, Nosomo could feel that ever since he left the dorm, someone was watching him, and it did not go away even when he walked around the academy. But confused him was that he did not feel malice or hostility from it. He thought that if he went into the forest, he would be able to shake off whoever was following him. But for some reason, looking at the situation, he was having a bad feeling about it. He was actually scared because he thought that someone had found out that he was a dragon slayer. So if he carelessly shook them off, it would cause him trouble. But it would also be a problem if they followed him to his master's cabin. Nosomo decided to confront the enemy by himself. He went to a quiet place in the town and suddenly turned back, waiting for whoever was following him to appear. But Mars was not surprised to see that Nosomo had noticed him, because he was already expecting Nosomo to do something unexpected. Nosomo was shocked to see Mars and tensely asked what exactly he was up to, tailing him like this. Mars replied that there was just something he wanted to find out from him. Nosomo asked in confusion, something from him? But what could it be? To his surprise, instead of answering, Mars drew his sword and dashed toward him. Nosomo saw that and blocked the attack. He tensely asked what Mars was doing all of a sudden. Mars kept attacking, saying he was just making him answer his questions. Nosomo still asked why Mars was attacking if he wanted answers. But when Mars didn't stop, he began carefully observing his fighting style. Nosomo saw that Mars was swinging fully, yet he wasn't being thrown off by the heavy weapon. He even noticed that Mars could make consecutive strikes very smoothly. So, Nosomo dodged Mars's attack and made him drop his sword to the ground. He then put a foot on the sword to gain an advantage, but Mars was ready and simply left the sword there. After that, Mars suddenly gathered power in his fist and struck. It was actually a wind-gathering fist, a wind elemental technique where wind accumulates in the fist, increasing the strength of the blow. The massive wind could also be released to push the opponent away, making it a highly versatile and adaptable technique. So now, when Nosomo was knocked back by Mars's blow, Mars took the chance to retrieve his sword. After that, Mars was confused, wondering why, even though he had more chi and strength, his attacks wouldn't land. Nosomo dodged and parried every strike, almost pushing him right back. Mars became certain that, purely in terms of sword skill, Nosomo was superior. He wanted to know how Nosomo had reached that level while being held back by his ability suppression. He actually wanted to know because he thought that maybe, after learning, he could become stronger himself. Finally, Mars sheathed his sword and apologized to Nosomo for attacking so suddenly. He then directly asked Nosomo how he had learned those sword techniques. Nosomo replied that he had a teacher since his first year and had been studying under her all this time. Mars asked if he could meet her. Nosomo shook his head, saying that she had already passed away. Mars then curiously asked if he could know what kind of training he had gone through. Nosomo explained that it was practice swinging, training runs in a forest full of monsters, and mock battles where he used almost lethal techniques. Hearing all that, Mars felt both scared and shocked. He said he was amazed that Nosomo was still alive after all that. Nosomo smiled, agreeing with him. Mars then said that now he understood why Nosomo's movements were so precise, his sword skills so sharp, and his judgment so keen, all gained from training with that teacher. He realized that by engraving all those painful experiences into his mind and body day by day, Nosomo had developed that judgment and the ability to sense danger, whether he wanted it or not. Nosomo then angrily asked if Mars was just trying to say that he had followed and attacked him only to find all this out. Mars felt embarrassed and tensely admitted that he had. Nosomo still glared at him fiercely, demanding a proper answer. Seeing this, Mars began hesitating while explaining. Suddenly, a girl's voice shouted from behind him, and hearing it, he got scared. The tension is rising, secrets are surfacing, and new characters are stepping into the shadows. So guys, what do you think will happen next? Who do you think the girl is? And why did Mars panic when he heard her voice? And now that Mars has seen Nosomo's true sword skill, will he become an ally? Or a future rival? Comment your theories below. I'd love to read them. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel for the next chapter, and more epic fantasy content.